Welcome to part 3 of my small series where I'm trying to repair my Polo GTI. In the last video I showed you how I stripped the engine down to the block and hopefully found its damage, which would be a blown head gasket. I'm pretty sure that the head gasket was the part that forced the engine to overheat, because when it's bloated, it's not able to seal the combustion chamber, which then means it will allow the piston to force the hot emissions into the cooling system. So yeah, let's try to put everything back together. So, this is my friend cylinder head, which I tried to clean for the last hour. To clean the cylinder head, I used really soft sandpaper, which was originally meant to use it on wood, but I wanted to make sure that I don't damage anything. And after that, I did the same thing with the engine block. And after removing the last crumbs and possible leftovers from the sandpaper, I was able to put the head gasket on. Therefore, I just placed the head gasket on the block by using the two centering points over cylinder 1 and 4. After that, I put the gasket of the exhaust manifold on the cylinder head and placed the cylinder head on the block of the engine, using the same centering pins as for the head gasket before. It actually took me a bit of time to fit the cylinder head clean on the block while trying to fiddle the studs from the cylinder head through the exhaust manifold. Next up, I had to place the 10 screws for the cylinder head. Then I had a closer look at the instructions on how to tighten them up. Therefore, you need to tighten up every bolt 4 times in a crosswise order. In the first round, you have to torque them up to 30 Newton meters. And after that, you have to do 3 rounds of quarter turns. So, another 3 sets of 90. Okay, let's do it another 3 times. After I tightened up the cylinder head, the camshaft housing was ready to be installed. For the sealing, I used the tube which was included in the gasket set which I used. I also made sure to drop a bit of oil on the top of every rocker arm, so they won't run dry when I'm trying to start up the engine for the first time. To adjust the position of the camshaft housing, I used the 2 very thin centering posts from the cylinder head. So the next step was to replace the old timing chain, sprocket and camshaft adjuster. Timing up the engine luckily wasn't as bad as you might think. You just had to set the crankshaft precisely to TDC and fit the locking tool in the camshaft housing. After that, you just have to carefully tighten up the bolts. After that, I started to put everything back together. And because I constantly used my phone to look at the pictures that I made while taking it apart, I didn't film very much, but it went pretty straightforward. And surprisingly, I was much faster in rebuilding everything than I was at stripping it down. So the last thing I had to do was to fill the engine up with some fresh oil and replace the old oil filter. And after that, it was ready for its first start. So, moment of truth, will it start? And yes, it started. And even if the engine was rattling like crazy, it ran fairly smooth and it didn't misfire once. And after I let it run up to temperature, it sounded much better. So I waited till the oil temperature went up to take it for a test drive. I decided to drive around 50 kilometers before doing the first full throttle pulls. But everything felt solid and I was surprised on how smooth the engine was running. And the best thing was, it wasn't overheating anymore, so the original problem was fixed. And of course I will be doing a few POV drive videos of the car. And yeah, in the end I want to thank you for watching my first real project car.